It's late, I know, but I'm glad you're here. Tonight, we're going somewhere brutal, bizarre, and strangely familiar. We're going to ancient Rome, not the marble palaces or the emperor's banquet halls, but down in the sand, under the sun, where the crowd is chanting and you unfortunately are the entertainment. This is a story about what it really meant to be a gladiator. The hunger, the humiliation, the human smell of fear. It's not the Hollywood version. It's messier, sadder, funnier in a grim kind of way. So, if you're listening from bed, or the floor of your apartment, or the last lonely train home, say hello in the comments. Tell me what time it is, or where you are. And if you enjoy this kind of storytelling, feel free to subscribe, but only if it feels right. Now dim the lights, and let's drift back in time. Imagine waking up on a bed of straw that smells faintly of mildew and someone else's sweat. You don't know what day it is, but you know what today is for you. It's fight day. Not your first fight, but not your last, either if you're lucky or unlucky. It's hard to tell. The air is thick with the smell of stale bread, oil, iron, and that sour musk of men who sleep too close together. You're housed in a ludus, a training school for gladiators. The walls are thick, not for your protection, but to keep you in. And there's a tiny barred window where the sun slices in like a blade. You'd think sunlight would be comforting. It's not. It just reminds you of the heat to come. You roll off the straw. Your back aches. Your stomach growls. Breakfast, if you can call it that, is a cold porridge made from barley paws. It sticks to your teeth and smells like wet socks. They call you Hordarius Barleyman because that's what you eat. Not because it's good for you, but because it's cheap and slow to digest. Keeps you heavy in the ring. Gladiators aren't lean, they're padded. Like living meat shields. It's protection, sort of. But it also makes you slow. You chew your porridge and wonder not for the first time if this is really better than death. You weren't born to this. Very few were. Some of the men around you are prisoners of war. Others were sold into this, debtors, criminals. There's a Greek man who swears he used to be a philosopher. There's a Gaul with broken teeth who sobs quietly before every fight. You try not to look at him. It's easier to pretend no one's afraid. But you're all afraid. Of course you are. The arena is not just a place, it's a machine. It grinds down identity until all that's left is spectacle. It doesn't care where you're from or who you loved. It only asks, will you bleed well? Will you die convincingly? As you finish your porridge, a bell rings, low and cruel. It's time to oil up. Time to strap on armor that doesn't quite fit. Time to pray if that's your thing. Though even the gods seem to watch the games as entertainment now. And so you stand. You are not a hero. You are not even a soldier. You are a product. A pulse wrapped in scars. An answer to someone's boredom. And today, you are going to give them a show. The oil is cold. That's the first thing. They tell you it helps your muscles loosen and shine under the sun, but it mostly just smells like olives left too long in a barrel. One of the older men helps you rub it into your shoulders. His name is Varro. He's fought 27 times, which is another way of saying he's survived 27 coin tosses. Varro doesn't talk much. When he does, it's always in riddles. It's not the sword you should fear, he mutters as he tightens your greaves. It's the sand, always the sand. You want to ask what he means, but you don't. There's no time, and even if there were, you already know. The sand gets into everything. It eats the soles of your feet. It crawls into your wounds. Worse than that, it remembers The sand is soaked with blood. Years of it, decades, bits of teeth, buttons, bone fragments. You fight in a graveyard. No one says it, but everyone knows. You move next to the pile of gear, not uniforms. Gladiators don't wear those. You wear what you're given, what the crowd expects. Today, you're playing the secutor, the chaser. Heavy helmet with tiny eye holes, short gladius, curved shield, designed for one thing, spectacle. You were meant to chase someone who can't see well, can't breathe well, and eventually can't stand. You're sweating already. The helmet feels like a stove. Your breath bounces back at you, hot and sour. You tell yourself, it's fine. You've done this before. Just breathe. Just move forward. Just pretend. But that's the trick no one tells you. It's not the pain that's hardest. It's the pretending. Pretending you're not afraid. Pretending the cheers mean anything. Pretending this isn't the slowest, stupidest suicide known to man. The gate ahead of you rattles open. Someone growls your name, not your real name, your stage name, Taurus. They shout, because apparently you look like a bull. You never got a say in it. The crowd howls. Thousands of them. Their faces blur together into a single hungry thing. They don't want to know you. They want to see you break. Your stomach lurches, but you step forward. Because that's the job. You walk past the cells. Past a boy who looks 14. He won't fight today, but he's watching. And you see it in his face. He thinks he can survive this place. You want to tell him the truth. But again, no time. You cross the threshold. Light hits your eyes like a slap. The arena opens up like a mouth, and you step into it willingly. The sand is already warm, and yes, it's everywhere. You hear the gate clang shut behind you. There's no turning back now. You try not to look at them, the crowd. It's too much, too many eyes, too many mouths, like a sea of little gods, each one with the power to cheer or condemn, to spare or to scream for death. You know logically they can't all hate you. Some are here for the food, some for the sun, some because their friends dragged them along. But when they chant, when they bellow, your borrowed name, it doesn't feel like admiration. It feels like a curse. Somewhere up near the top tier, you know there's a man in a fine white toga who's never worked a day in his life. His sandals cost more than your entire body. He eats dormice stuffed with honeyed almonds while watching people die. He'll go home later and complain that the blood wasn't believable enough. Lower down, there are the regulars, the butchers, the smiths, the tired old women who sell bread by the forum. They have seen more violence than you ever will. They're quiet when someone dies slowly, and loud when it's clean. They know the rhythm of this place, and at the very front the children, small hands holding scraps of sausage, eyes wide. No one shields them. This is Rome, after all, and Rome does not flinch. There's a philosophy here, not that anyone speaks it aloud. If life is going to hurt, it may as well entertain. If suffering is inevitable, at least make it elegant. You shift your weight, adjusting the shield on your arm. The announcer is speaking now, though his voice blends with the roar. He lists your name, your record, your type. He does the same for the man across from you. You look at him, then look away. He's younger, or maybe just cleaner, doesn't matter. The moment the horn sounds, he becomes something else, not a person, a problem. This is what they paid for, the illusion of combat, but not really an illusion, not theater, not war, something in between, a dance with consequences. You breathe in deeply through the slit of your helmet. It smells like rust and oil. You brace, and then it begins, not with a shout, but with silence. The horn doesn't sound this time. They forgot, or it broke. Or maybe the man next to you just didn't wait. Either way he charges, and you move because instinct says move. Your shield jerks up. Your feet slip slightly. The crowd gasps, and suddenly you're in it. The rhythm, the blur, the heat. The endless guessing game of blade and bluff. He's fast, you're tired. He's young, you're heavier. He stabs forward, you turn. His blade skims your shoulder. It doesn't hurt yet, it will later. The crowd loves this. They howl. You think someone's throwing flower petals. No, it's bits of sausage. One lands near your foot. The world narrows. It's not a fight, not really. It's a performance with teeth. You don't remember when the blade cut your thigh. One moment, you're circling, shielding, watching his wrist, not his eyes. Never the eyes, and the next. There's warmth leaking down your leg. Not gushing, not bad, just present. A line of red in the dust. The crowd notices. They always do. The volume swells like a tide. Blood excites them. Not death, not really. Death is final, dull. Blood is alive. It means the show's not over yet. He smiles, the young one. You can tell he's new to this. Still has some hope clinging to him, like dirt under fingernails. He thinks the crowd's roar is for him. Maybe it is. But don't mistake volume for loyalty. They cheer for blood, not victory. They cheer for movement, not meaning. Today they love him. Tomorrow they'll forget him. And if he dies right now, dramatically, with a good spray, they'll love that too. You tighten your grip on the shield. There's a rule here, not in writing, just known. If you fall too fast, it looks fake. If you don't bleed at all, it looks staged. You must seem mortal, but not too mortal. It's theater, but not art. Truth, but not tragedy. You push forward, not because you're brave, because your legs still work, and that's all that matters. Your opponent lunges again, and this time you sidestep, fast and low, and slam your shield against his ribs. A thud, a gasp. He staggers. You move in, and for one breathless moment, you almost pity him. He's too clean, too soft in the eyes. You know that look. You had it once, before you learned the truth. This place doesn't care how good you are. It only cares how long you last. You strike, not to kill. That's not your call. You aim for the stomach, the spot where it hurts but doesn't end things. He drops, clutching himself, face twisted. Now the crowd is on their feet. Not because of what happened, because of what might. This is the moment the editor decides. Not you, not him, not the gods. A man in white, seated above the crowd, holds your fates between his fingers. A twist of the wrist, a wave of the hand. Sometimes he looks bored. Today he looks interested. You lift your gladius. The blade trembles slightly. Sweat, or nerves, or both. You wait, not for mercy. That's a myth. You wait for the gesture. Thumb up, or down, or sideways, like some say it really was. But really, it doesn't matter. Because no matter which way the hand turns, something dies. The hand moves. You see it. Everyone sees it. A sideways flick. Not up, not down, just a blur. The crowd reacts before you can. Some cheer, some groan. The boy groans because he knows it's not death. But it's not freedom either. It's mercy's awkward cousin, survival. And survival, in this place, is rarely a reward. You lower your blade. Carefully, the boy clutches his side and nods. Not at you, but at the sand. or at the gods, or maybe at no one. You back away. You don't offer help. That would be worse. That would humiliate him. And if there's one thing more dangerous than bleeding in the arena tits, looking weak in front of the mob, a pair of assistants rush in, dressed like fools. Painted faces. They help him limp out while juggling jokes for the crowd. Distraction. Rome believes in distraction like others believe in rain. Keep the people laughing, and maybe they'll forget who they are. You don't watch him leave. You turn back toward the gate. The cheers fade. The sand suddenly feels heavier, as if it knows how close it came to drinking more. You limp slightly. Your thigh is still bleeding. The wound is shallow but rude. Like the arena itself, it doesn't kill, just humiliates. Back through the tunnel now, past the echoing stones, past the smell of old blood and oiled leather. A guard nods, not kindly, just automatically. Another body returning from the show. Inside, it's darker than you remembered. The straw smells worse. The air is close. You sit, hard, and the pain in your leg becomes real again. Varro looks over, says nothing, just tosses you a crust of bread. You take it, you eat. Slowly, each bite a rebellion against the idea that you're only here to entertain. The boy will live. You will too, for now, and that means tomorrow more of this. You wonder, not for the first time, what it would feel like to be free. Not in some abstract sense, just to walk without weight, to sleep without fear. But that's not your story, not yet. Out there, the crowd is still buzzing, still hungry, still dreaming of blood and glory and nothing in between. You lean your head back, and for a moment, just a moment, you forget who you are. And that is almost enough. It's strange, the details that stay with you. Not the big things, not the shouting, the bruises, the roar of the slave market. What you remember most is the sound of sandals on marble, that rhythmic slap-slap of people who had somewhere to go, people who weren't you. You were barefoot, of course. They always made you stand barefoot on the platform, said it made you look more authentic. A better bargain. Nobody wanted a slave with shoes. It sent the wrong message. You were hungry then, too. Always hungry. But this was a different kind of hunger. Not the slow ache of daily emptiness, but something sharper, like a question digging its nails into your chest. Why me? You weren't a criminal. Not technically. You weren't a soldier either. Just unfortunate. Wrong birth, wrong debts, wrong day. Your master, your first one, liked to remind you that fortune is a wheel. Sometimes you're on top, sometimes beneath it, and sometimes you are the wheel. The market was loud. Voices shouting, prices, nationalities, specialties, strong arms, good teeth, one owner, like livestock, which, technically, you were. The man who bought you didn't look like much. Thin lips, expensive sandals, eyes like flat water. He poked your ribs, pulled your hair back, asked your age. You lied, of course. Said you were 21. You were 16. He nodded, handed over some coin, and that was that. A new life, purchased in the time it takes to scratch your nose. You thought it might not be so bad. He didn't look cruel, but cruelty rarely looks like anything at all. It's not always a whip. Sometimes it's a smile. Sometimes it's a choice made 1,000 miles away that lands on your back like a stone. You walked behind him, through streets that smelled like roasted meat and spilled wine, past temples, fountains, piles of olive pits. Rome was so alive, and so indifferent. You tried not to cry, not from fear, from shame. Being owned isn't just about chains. It's about knowing someone else decides what matters about you and what doesn't. Later that night, he told you, "You're going to the Gladiators," he said, not unkindly. "You've got the build for it. The face, maybe. You didn't know the word. You thought it was a farm. Then you saw the gates. High walls, barred windows, guards with clubs, and inside men with scars instead of smiles. Welcome to glory," someone muttered. It didn't feel like glory. It felt like drowning in dirt. They don't tell you about the branding. Not right away. First, they feed you. Not much, but enough to notice. You think maybe it's a good sign. Maybe they need you strong. Maybe this place isn't so bad. Then come the questions. Name, age, origin. Not that it matters. They'll call you something else soon enough. Taurus, lupus, Crixus names for animals or heroes or gods, none of whom ever had to scrub blood from their ears. But they want to know, anyway. Maybe for the records. Maybe for the illusion that you're still a person. They measure you, weigh you, test how fast you move, how hard you hit. One man watches you like a butcher sizing up a cow. He doesn't smile. You sleep in a room with 20 others. The straw pokes through your tunic. The smell is thick and washed feet, sweat, old wounds. But there's silence, not fear, exactly. Something colder. Resignation, maybe. No one cries here. That was left outside the gate. Then, one morning, they call your name. Not your real name, the new one. You follow a guard through a stone corridor that smells like ash. Down a hallway lit by a single torch, flickering. There's a furnace burning at the end. You can hear it, feel it in your teeth. You know something's wrong. Inside, 2 men stand by a bench. One is holding iron tongs. The other is sharpening a long needle. On the wall, hanging like decorations, are brands. You pause. "I didn't steal," you say. Or maybe you don't. Maybe you only think it. They don't care. This isn't punishment. This is policy. Every gladiator gets marked right thigh. 3 letters burned into the flesh. SPQR, the mark of the Senate and people of Rome. Not for glory, for ownership. Your property now. Might as well label the merchandise. They hold you down, 1 on each side. You fight, of course you do. Not because you think you'll win. Just because something inside you says no. Then you smell the iron. Then you hear the hiss. Then you scream. It's not the pain, not really. You've felt pain before. It's the permanence, the finality. This mark is not a sentence. It's a fact. You will carry Rome on your leg until the day you die, and maybe after. When it's over, they splash water on the wound. Not to help, just to clean up the mess. You don't remember walking back. You don't remember lying down. But you remember Varro's voice, somewhere in the dark. "It stops hurting," he says. Eventually, you don't believe him, but you pretend you do. Because that's easier than crying. The ludus wakes before the sun. Not because it's noble, because it's practical. No one wants to train in the heat. That's when the sand starts to blister. When helmets become ovens. When every breath feels like sipping steam. So you rise in the dark, when the sky is still the color of old wine, and the air still pretends to be kind. Breakfast is the same. Barley gruel, sometimes bread, if someone died recently and they're feeling generous. Water from a clay jug passed around like a blessing. You learn not to ask for more. Then training begins. They call it disciplina, but it's not like school. It's more like breaking a horse. First the posture stand like this, Hold the shield here, Gladius, at this angle. Then the footwork step, pivot, don't cross your legs. Again, 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 until it's in your bones. The instructors are all ex-gladiators, retired, if you can call it that. Their bodies are maps of scar and muscle. Their voices hoarse from shouting. They don't care if you cry. They care if you hesitate. Hesitation kills, and dead men don't draw crowds. You fight wooden poles before you fight people. Swing, stab, block, repeat. The pole never hits back. But it doesn't praise you either. It just stands there, patient, unimpressed. Then come the sparring matches. Blunted weapons. No armor, not yet. Just bruises. Hundreds of them. Your arms bloom with purple. Your ribs ache constantly. You taste iron in your mouth and wonder if it's blood or just the beginning of something worse. They don't let you speak much. Not during training. Not after. You learn to read people through movement. Who favors their left. Who leads with the shield. Who wants to die. And who is simply afraid to live. One boy tries to run. He makes it past the courtyard. Past the first gate. Then the dogs catch him. You hear the punishment that night. You don't see it. You don't have to. No one runs again. In the evenings, they let you bathe. Communal, cold water, barely enough to rinse the sweat off. But in those brief moments, you remember what it feels like to be almost human. You wash around the brand, carefully. It still burns. It always will. Sometimes, when no one's looking, you trace the letters with your fingers, SPQR. You whisper them under your breath. You are Roman property now, and like all things Rome owns, you are expected to bleed beautifully. You learn early that you don't get to pick who you are in the arena. They assign you a role, a costume, a choreography. Not because it suits you, but because it suits the crowd. Maybe you're a Murmelo heavy helmet, tall shield, short sword. The classic, bulky and slow, like a human wall. You were built for endurance, not elegance. Or maybe you're cast as a Ricciarius, bare-chested, trident in one hand, net in the other. Light, fast, exposed. The fishman, they call you. You play the underdog, the exotic, the bait. The crowd loves to watch you squirm. Others get stranger titles. Threx, with your curved sword and griffin helmet. Dimicoris, wielding a blade in each hand like a drunk myth. And if you're unlucky, very unlucky, you might be dressed as something foreign, a Persian, a Nubian, a Dacian, not just a fighter, but a stand-in for every enemy Rome has ever had. A villain for them to cheer against. It doesn't matter who you are. It matters who they see when you step into the sand. Because that's the game, not victory, not survival, theater, ritual, a civic bloodletting disguised as sport, and the costuming matters. Down to the last leather strap. They dye your tunic a certain color. They oil your chest so you shine under the sun. If you're to die today, they want you to look good doing it. That's the logic of Rome. If you're going to be humiliated, at least be dazzling about it. You're told when to bow, when to salute. We who are about to die, the phrase echoes hollowly. Most don't say it. It's ceremonial, like kissing a god who never loved you. But some do say it, loudly, desperately. Like maybe, just maybe, Jupiter is listening this time. You learn your opponents like roles in a play. Not by name, but by type. The big ones are slow, but crush bones with one swing. The small ones dart like wasps and go for the tendons. Then there are the broken ones, men, who lost their last fight and came back different. They flinch at shadows. They talk to ghosts. The crowd calls them cowards. You call them warnings. And yet, despite all this, something strange happens. You get better. Your arms learn the rhythm. Your feet find the steps. You start to feel, not safe, but certain. Certain that if you can just keep moving, if you can keep breathing, you might see another morning, maybe even win a few. Some nights, you lie awake and imagine what it would feel like to hear your name cheered. Not your real name. That one's gone. The new name. The one the crowd knows. Because in the arena, fame is the closest thing you get to freedom. And you are so tired of being forgotten. There's a rumor that if you survive long enough, you can buy your freedom. The word they use is Rudy's a wooden sword, simple and unadorned. It means you've earned your release. That you're no longer a tool of the state, no longer a thing, but no one really talks about how long enough is. Some say 10 fights, others say 20. Varro claims he once met a man who won 32 bouts before they gave him the Rudies. But Varro also says he once shared a cell with a lion, so it's hard to know. What's certain is this: survival is not the same as living. You start to notice what the fights take from you. At first, it's your sleep. You lie awake each night, waiting for the bell, expecting the call. Every creak in the corridor feels like a sentence. You jump at shadows. You learn to sleep in short bursts, like a hunted thing. Then it's your body. Joints swell. Muscles, not cuts, become infections. Bruises bloom across your ribs, like slow bruised flowers. Your nose breaks and resets crooked. Your teeth rattle in your skull. You chew on one side now. The other aches too much. Then, slowly, it starts to take your memories. You forget what your mother's voice sounded like, or how the rain felt where you came from. You forget your native tongue, your old name, the color of your sister's eyes. At first it's just a fading, then it's a hole, and you begin to wonder if those things were ever real at all. Some men go mad from it. The quiet ones, mostly. They start humming to themselves, or laughing at things no one else hears. One man in the corner speaks only in riddles. Another refuses to speak at all. He just draws shapes in the dirt with his finger shapes that never make sense. And yet, despite it all, you keep fighting, because it's the only thing left that belongs to you. You can't control the crowd, or the gods, or the editor in the stands with the lazy hand. But for the minutes you're in the sand, swinging steel and dodging death, you are no one's servant. You are something else, a monster, a martyr, a man who refuses to stop. That's the other thing no one tells you. Gladiators don't fight because they want to die. They fight because they're not done living yet. Even if what's left of them isn't much more than scars and spit and the memory of sunlight through the bars. And sometimes on the rarest of days the crowd sees it. That flicker of will, that glint of defiance in a battered eye. And they cheer, not for blood, but for you. You don't exist without the crowd. That's the first rule of Roman spectacle. Without eyes to watch, ears to cheer, fingers to point your, suffering is meaningless. Pain alone is not enough. Pain must be witnessed. That's what makes it valuable, and Rome understands this better than anyone. They call it panem, et circenses, bread and circuses. It sounds quaint, almost charming, but it's a contract, an ancient bargain between power and people. Give them grain, give them games, and in return, they won't ask questions. They won't notice how the walls are crumbling or how their sons disappear in foreign wars. They'll stay quiet if you keep them fed and entertained. You are the entertainment. It's not personal. You are a release valve, a distraction, a lesson even. This is what happens to the disobedient, the foreign, the strange, the poor, the overly proud. Watch him bleed, then go home, sleep easy. In some ways, it's brilliant. Rome is vast millions of citizens, dozens of provinces, gods upon gods. You can't rule that with fear alone. You need noise, spectacle, a sense of grandeur, and nothing says empire quite like building a giant stone bowl where thousands gather to watch a dozen men try not to die. The Colosseum, they call it, though it doesn't have a name yet, just a presence. It rises like a monster out of the earth, tier upon tier of carved stone, arches like eyes. They say it can hold 50,000. You think it might be more, and they fill it, day after day. People queue for hours, families, senators, slaves, all equal under the sun, all watching with the same hunger. But what they don't see, what they don't want to see, is that this system feeds on silence. You don't scream when you fall, you grunt, you cough, you bleed, but you don't scream. That would remind them you're human. Instead, you pose. When you win, you raise your arms. When you lose, you fall gracefully. When they spare you, you nod like a man who's grateful. Even if your stomach is leaking and your breath tastes like iron, you play your part. Because if you don't, the editor will notice. The crowd will sour. And next time, the mercy signal might come too late. There is no freedom in the arena, but there is favor. And in Rome, favor is everything. A smile from the right patrician can mean better food, fewer beatings, maybe even a coin slipped under your bowl. If you make them laugh, they might protect you for a while, but make them uncomfortable. Remind them that you cry at night, that your wounds fester, that you once held a child in your arms before you were dragged into this. No, that ruins the game. And Rome does not forgive those who spoil its illusions. He's there again, high above the arena, nestled in the imperial boxer, shaded, marbled enclave where the breeze is always cooler and the wine never stops flowing. The emperor, not always the same man, but always the same gaze, detached, appraising, bored, most days, but still dangerous. Because one glance from him can change your life, or end it. You've never been this close before, not to power, real power. The kind that sits silently while men kill each other below, like beetles in a bowl. He doesn't cheer, not like the crowd. His face is a mask, a god among citizens, a statue pretending to breathe. But sometimes rarely he smiles. And when he does, a ripple goes through the whole arena. Senators shift in their seats. Citizens raise their voices. The editor leans forward, eager to mimic approval. If the emperor smiles, the people know how to feel. That's how it works. This empire runs on mimicry, from the top to the bottom. Every gesture, every law, every punishment a performance inherited from the man on the marble throne, and that performance extends to you. Your death or survival is not determined by justice, or fairness, or skill. It's determined by mood. If the emperor is bored, you die quickly. If he's in a good mood, you might get a second chance. If you remind him of someone he once liked, or someone he once hated, your fate is sealed either way. They say one emperor used to draw names out of a jar. Another would flip a coin. One liked to ask his favorite concubine what she thought. One let a monkey choose. None of them chose you because of who you are. You are a reflection, not a person, a shadow thrown by the torch of the state. Still, you play the game. You bow when expected, salute with practiced flair. You memorize the rhythm of applause. When it rises, you smile. When it falls, you bleed harder. When it's uncertain, you do something reckless, because recklessness is currency. Once, you heard of a man who bit his opponent's ear off in the sand. It wasn't a tactic. It wasn't strategy. It was desperation. But the emperor laughed, and the man was spared. Given better quarters, more food, a name. He died 2 weeks later, of course. But still, 2 good weeks. You wonder what it would take to make him look at you, to make him remember. Not because you want his favor, but because you want to exist. Just for a moment. Not as a tool, or a type, or a silhouette under the sun. Just as someone who lived. Even if it ends with his thumb turning down, at least then it ends with meaning. You learn early, a good death is worth more than a good life. In the arena, that's not a metaphor. It's an economic reality. Die, poorly screaming, stumbling, weeping them, the crowd turns. They boo, they throw fruit. The editor sneers. The emperor looks away. Your name becomes a punchline whispered by children on the walk home. But die well, die beautifully. Then you become something else. A story. They call it decorous, exitus, graceful exit. The kind that makes poets sigh and senators nod solemnly. You fall without flailing. You accept the blade. You gaze upward with the resigned serenity of a man who knows he is feeding the myth. And the myth must eat. There's a ritual to it. When you're defeated, you kneel. You bare your neck or chest. You hold still. Sometimes the victor waits for the sign. Sometimes he doesn't. Either way, you must not flinch. The crowd doesn't want fear. They want sacrifice. The arena, after all, is sacred ground. A kind of theater temple hybrid where the blood, spilled, is supposed to mean something. Courage, honor, the glory of Rome. Never mind that your bladder might empty in your final moment, or that your breath comes in panicked gasps. They don't see that. They see a silhouette head bowed, sword poised, silence rising like incense. And the more beautiful your death, the more valuable your memory. You might be painted on a tavern wall, sung about by drunk soldiers. Maybe your name, your gladiator name, will be etched into a tile. Taurus, champion of the sand. That's the hope, anyway. The dream they feed you. Because if you die memorably enough, you don't vanish. That's the lie you cling to. But even this has layers. Some deaths are bought. Sometimes a patron pays for a fixed match. One man wins, the other loses, but both walk out alive. Or only one walks out, but not because he earned it. Because someone in a higher seat made a deal. And then there are the deaths no one planned for. The accidental stabs. The bleeding that doesn't stop. The hidden spearhead left buried in the sand, pressed into your spine when you fall just so. The kind of deaths that remind the crowd this isn't a play. That the sand is not just red paint and poetry. The officials hate those deaths. Too messy, too real. But the crowd, they eat it up. Because somewhere, deep down, they crave authenticity. Even if it comes at the cost of your life. Especially if it comes at the cost of your life. And so you train, and so you bleed. And so you dream not of escape, not even of survival, but of dying correctly. Because in the end, that's all Rome ever promised you. Not love, not peace. Just the chance to die well enough that they remember your name, even if you forgot it long ago. You wouldn't think there'd be a black market in a gladiator school, but there is. Of course there is. Wherever there is suffering, there is barter. Wherever there is hunger, there is currency. Here, the economy doesn't run on coin, it runs on whispers. A bite of cheese traded for silence. a favor from a guard in exchange for a quiet injury, a longer bath, a softer mat, a chance to sit by the window. These things are earned through negotiation, not rules. You learn quickly that kindness has a price. The man who wraps your bandage may expect your portion of bread the next day. The boy who warns you about a bad helmet might ask you to throw a punch a little slower during sparring. And then there are the informants. Not all gladiators are loyal to each other. Some are loyal to their stomachs, or their wounds, or the faint promise that if they please the Lannister, the man who owns you, they'll get better treatment. You speak carefully, sleep lightly. You learn the art of the partial truth. Even your pain becomes currency. Limp too much, and you'll be pulled from the roster. Limp too little, and they'll think you're faking. You must suffer believably, even among your own. Then there's the doctor, the medicus. He's not kind, exactly, but he's precise. He knows which wounds can be stitched, which can be ignored, and which must be hidden. You don't ask where he learned. You just know he doesn't flinch when blood hits the floor. He has power. He decides who fights, who rests, who gets the stronger wine before a match, who gets a bit of honey with their gruel. He never asks for thanks. He never says much, but everyone owes him something. And you try not to owe anyone anything. But it's impossible. The longer you survive, the more tangled it gets. Debts owed, deals made, secrets kept. Once, you overheard two guards talking, laughing about a match being delayed. One said the word like it was a joke, like someone's injury was an inconvenience in a dinner schedule. You asked nothing, but the next day, your opponent limped slightly. You knew the fight would be yours. It didn't feel like victory. It felt like theft, and yet you took it. Because in this place, you can't afford morality. You can barely afford breath. Every favor you give becomes a crack in your armor, and every favor you take becomes a hook in your spine. They say Rome is built on stone, but you know the truth. It's built on whispered deals between desperate men, and none of them are free. You first notice her on a quiet afternoon match midweek, half-empty stands. The sort of day where the sun hangs too heavy and the crowd's roar has a lazy echo. You're in the ring, not fighting, just part of a ceremonial march. A staged salute, weapons lifted, armor gleaming. You barely look at faces anymore, but something makes you glance up, and there she is, not in the front rows, not in the imperial box. Far back, almost in shadow, a woman, wrapped in a plain shawl, unadorned, watching, not cheering, not clapping, just watching. You think nothing of it. A widow, maybe. A bored patrician wife. But then the next week there she is again. Same place, same silence. It happens enough that you start to expect it. She's there on sunny days and stormy ones, during great festivals and minor executions, always alone, always watching, and slowly you begin to imagine a story. That she once loved a gladiator, that she's mourning, that she sees something familiar in you. Or maybe she's a scholar, studying human pain. Maybe she's a ghost. Rome has so many of them. But deep down, you wonder, is she waiting for you to die? That thought coils in your chest, because some days, it feels like everyone is. The guards, the trainers, even your fellow fighters. They measure your breath, your steps, your victories, not to celebrate them, to predict their end. Everyone in this place is waiting for someone to fall, even you, especially you. But her gaze is different, not hungry, not cruel, just present. It unsettles you more than any blade. And one day, after a particularly brutal match, when your leg is cut and your shield arm is trembling and you can barely see through the blood-sweat fog, there she is again. And for the first time, her eyes meet yours. Not for long, just a second. But in that second, the noise vanishes. The dust hangs still. Time softens. She doesn't nod, doesn't smile. She simply sees you, and you feel something strange, something dangerous. You feel human. It doesn't last. The crowd roars. The editor lifts his hand. The victor opponent raises his arms. You stumble toward the tunnel, the world spinning, blood trickling into your boot. But that look stays with you. Later, alone in the dark, while others snore and mutter and dream of quieter deaths, you hold on to it like a thread. Because for just a moment, in a world made of masks and sand and rusting steel, someone saw the man beneath the name and didn't look away. There is a shrine in the corner of the Ludus courtyard. It's barely noticeable, just a rough-hewn niche in the wall with soot-stained edges. Inside, a chipped figure of Hercules, some dried flowers, a cracked oil lamp, and bones. Small ones. Bird, maybe. No one tends it. No one admits to leaving offerings. But things always appear there. Bits of bread. A smear of wine. A bead from a broken necklace. Once, a tooth. No one prays aloud. You learn early. The gods do not answer questions from the pit. Rome is filled with gods, household gods, city gods, foreign gods, shrines on street corners, altars at crossroads, temples that gleam gold and marble. But none of those gods come here, not to the sand, not to the blood, and if they do, they come only to watch. You were taught the old prayers once, back home. Words you don't remember clearly, but your hands still know the shape of them. You catch yourself making gestures when no one's looking. A flick of the fingers before a fight. A murmur against the straw when you're half asleep. You don't know who you're speaking to, but you do it anyway. Some of the others still believe, not in the temples, in signs. A bird flying the wrong direction. A bad dream, a creaking door at midnight. They whisper meanings into things, as if weaving order from the chaos might save them. One man, a towering Numidian, with burn scars on his chest, swears by his mother's spirit. Before every match, he stares into the sky and mutters her name. He's still alive. Another, thin and trembling, has a tattoo of Fortuna on his back. Fortune, luck. She hasn't looked his way in months. And Varro believes in nothing. The gods are cowards, he once said, tightening his armor. They send mortals to fight for their amusement and call it divine. You didn't know whether to agree or pray harder. Once, during a rare festival, a priest visited the Ludus, sprinkled holy water, said the blessings, promised protection from Mars, god of war. He looked away when he said it, like even he didn't believe himself. That night, 2 men died in training. Their bodies were dragged to the edge of the yard, not burned, not buried, just placed. The guards joked that Mars had been hungry. No one laughed. There's something about the arena that doesn't fit inside religion. Maybe it's too brutal, maybe too honest. The gods promise order, the arena offers spectacle. One requires belief, the other demands performance. And you're caught in between. So you glance at the shrine, you whisper to shadows, you press your fingers into your palm before a match, not because you believe, but because you can't afford not to. There's a silence that settles just before the gate opens. Not real silence, Rome. Never truly stops humming. but a stillness, thick and uneasy, like the world holding its breath. You learn to feel it in your ribs. Your armor is already on. Oiled leather, metal plates, that infernal helmet. You've done this before, dozens of times, but today feels different. Maybe it's the way the sand looked this morning, damp, darker than usual. Or the way Varro avoided your eyes at breakfast. Or maybe it's just in your head. A whisper you can't shake. You've been told nothing. That's how it works. They summon you. They suit you up. They point toward the light. And you go. The guards don't speak. Their eyes are tired. One of them Lucius, the one with the missing toffers, you a crust of honeyed bread. A small mercy. You take it, break it with your teeth. Chew slowly. In the corridor, the walls are damp. Sweat and old blood and years of breath have soaked into the stone. You run your hand along the grooves, not out of reverence, just to feel something solid, something that won't shift beneath you. The other fighters are quiet too, not out of fear, out of superstition. No one talks before a match that might be their last. There's a boy beside you, no more than 15, maybe younger. His eyes are wide. His fingers tremble on the hilt of his sword. This is his first time. You don't speak to him. There's nothing you can say that would help, but you nod. He nods back. That's enough. Above, you hear the first trumpet, low, droning, like a warning bell for the soul. That means the crowd is assembling. The editor has arrived. Someone important is in the imperial box. Today, maybe even the emperor himself. You imagine them up there, fanning themselves, drinking watered wine, watching the sand as if it were a stage, which it is. You are the performance. Your breath shortens, not panic, just tightening. You've learned to manage it. Count the seconds. Inhale, exhale. Roll your shoulders. Adjust your grip. The light ahead brightens. The gate is rising. A few grains of sand fall from above, hitting your helmet like the softest rain. The boy beside you makes a sound. A prayer, maybe, or a sob. You step forward, one foot, then the next. The sun stabs your eyes, the heat slaps your face, and the roar hits like thunder from 1,000 throats. But beneath it thunder, the screams and laughter and Weinslick cheers, you still hear it. That stillness, the quiet just before it begins. The last breath of the world before it holds you in its teeth. The arena is a wound carved into the earth, perfectly oval, perfectly cruel. Rows upon rows of polished stone seats stretch toward the sky, filled with Romans in togas and tunics and cheap sandals. Every one of them squinting down like gods with bad eyesight. You don't look at them. You can't. Your feet hit the sand with a dull rhythm. It's softer than usual, today freshly laid, perhaps. A courtesy before the carnage. But you know what lies beneath. Layers of it. Decades. Blood, bone, rusted bits of armor. A graveyard paved over with ceremony. They tell you this is tradition, that you're part of something sacred, a lineage, a ritual older than memory, that the games honor the dead, appease the gods, uphold the glory of Rome. But it feels less like a ritual and more like a feeding. Your meat, dressed in myth. To your right, the boy stumbles slightly. His shield clatters. The crowd notices. A few chuckle. One voice calls out something obscene. You ignore it. So does he. His eyes are fixed on the sand in front of him, as if willing it to open and swallow him whole. Across from you stands your opponent, not unfamiliar, a veteran. You've sparred before. He's better than you, stronger, but slower. You might win. You might not. It won't matter. The match has already been decided in a dozen ways you'll never see. The editor is speaking now, his voice a trained boom that echoes across the stone. He names the fighters, their records, their crimes. He says your name with theatrical reverence. Taurus, a beast, a symbol, not a man. And still, some part of you clenches at it. That name, that hollow label, it doesn't belong to you, but it's all you have. You wear it like a mask, like armor, because your real name died somewhere in the dirt long ago. The horn sounds. You don't move yet, neither does he. This is part of it, the dance, the feint. The moment where the crowd holds their breath. They want blood, but not too fast. They want fear, but not too real. They want suffering they can clap for. And so you begin. Steel clashes. Sand kicks up. Your muscles scream. His blade grazes your side, not deep, but sharp enough to sting. You spin, shield raised, and the crowd gasps. They're cheering now, for you, not because they want you to live, but because, for a moment, you made them feel something. And in this city of marble and lies and constant noise, feeling anything at all is the rarest gift. You fight harder, not for victory, for that flicker of meaning, for that second where the roar of the crowd feels like proof that you still exist, even if you know deep down it won't last. Because when the match ends, win or lose, the sand will be raked, the names will be forgotten, the armor will be reused, the gods will stay silent, and tomorrow someone else will bleed where you stood. You win, barely. A deep gash in your thigh, another near the shoulder. Your shield hand is numb. You think something's cracked in your ribs, but he fell first. That's all that matters. He didn't fall beautifully. No dramatic arc through the air. No poetic collapse. He just stumbled backward, hit the ground with a grunt, and didn't rise. His eyes were open when you looked down. That's always the worst part. The eyes, they look at you like they still expect something: mercy, explanation, forgiveness, as if you had anything left to give. The crowd, of course, doesn't see that. They see victory. They rise. They clap. Some throw tokens, cheap coins, bits of cloth, a garland of wilted flowers. You don't reach for them. That's not your role. You kneel, head bowed, sword planted in the sand like a tombstone, waiting for the editor's signal. It comes a nod, the hand neutral. Survival granted, nothing more. No glory, no parade. But you get to leave under your own weight, and in this place, that's rare enough to feel like grace. The boy he didn't fight, he's gone. They pulled him back before the match. You don't ask why. You don't want to know. He'll either be back tomorrow, or he won't. Back through the tunnel now. Every step burns. Your blood drips onto the stone floor. A guard gives you a look, not pity, not concern, just checking to see if you'll collapse. If you do, they'll carry you. But that's a waste of time. So you walk. The medicus meets you just inside the threshold, doesn't speak, just lifts your arm, peels the armor off like old bark. You hiss when he presses the wound. He doesn't apologize. He never does. You lie down on the stone bench. He cleans the cuts with something that smells like rot and vinegar. The sting makes your teeth ache. You stare at the ceiling and count the cracks. 17, maybe 18. You wonder if the man you fought is still breathing, if he's being stitched up to, or if his body's already cooling in the prep room. You won't ask. You can't afford to care. The Lannister enters briefly, nods once, says, "Well done." It's meaningless. the way a farmer pats a mule. You're valuable because you didn't die. Today, someone brings you a bowl of water. Stale, but cool. You drink like a dog. Greedily, sloppily, you don't care. In the corner, a new recruit watches you, his eyes wide. He's trying to learn something from your pain. You hope he doesn't succeed. Later, you sit alone by the small window in the dormitory. The sun is setting. The courtyard is quiet. The shrine glows faintly in the fading light. You touch the scar on your shoulder. The new one, it's still weeping. But it's proof that you were here, that you mattered, if only for a moment. The gods don't speak, but for a few fleeting breaths, the crowd did. And even if they forget tomorrow, tonight, you still have your name. Taurus, the man who walked back from the sand. You don't sleep that night. Not because of the pain, though, there is plenty of that. Your leg pulses with each heartbeat. Your ribs ache every time you shift. Even your eyelids feel bruised. But pain is manageable, familiar. It's the dreams that keep you awake. Not nightmares, exactly. Not visions of death or blood. Worse than that, memories, flashes of another life. A blue sky without bars, the sound of chickens in the yard. The weight of a wooden pail in your arms. A voice calling your name, not Taurus, the other one, the real one. You try to hold it, it slips. Morning comes grey and damp. A mist curls low over the training yard, softening the world into whispers. The others are stirring, stretching, binding wounds, swearing under their breath. You're not training today. You're being taken somewhere else. The medicus wraps your leg, muttering about infection. You nod. You don't ask questions. That's not your place. 2 guards arrive, not the usual ones. They don't look at you when they bind your wrists, loosely, not cruelly in gesture. Toward the gate, you follow, not out to the arena, down, below. Beneath the stone rows and the chanting echoes and the painted shields, into the underbelly of the Colosseum. It's darker here, wet. You hear dripping, and something skitters across the floor. There are cages empty now, but you know what they hold during games. Lions, bears, even crocodiles, they say. All part of the performance. Further in, past the animal pens and weapon stores, there are other rooms, quiet ones, ritual spaces, storage, cells you're led into a chamber carved from old stone, lit by a single oil lamp. Inside is a man in robes, not a priest, not a guard, someone else. He doesn't speak right away, just watches you. Finally, he says, "Sit." You do. He examines your face, your arms, the wound on your leg, then nods. "You'll fight again in 3 days," he says, without emotion. It's a special exhibition. A foreign delegation will be watching. You don't respond, he continues. You've done well. The people know your name. Still, you say nothing. Then he leans closer. They think you belong to them, and there it is. The truth you've always known, buried beneath the fanfare and the oaths and the cheers. You're not a hero. You're not even a villain. You're property, a vessel for their desires, their fears, their illusions of control. He hands you a scrap of parchment, a match list, 2 names. You read them. One is yours. The other is the boy. The one from the corridor. The one with the trembling hands and the soft eyes. You stare at the names. You hand the parchment back. 3 days, he repeats. Rest. They escort you back to the dormitory. You lie on the straw, staring at the ceiling. You wonder if the gods are watching now. or if they're laughing, or if they're just tired of the noise. 3 days, that's what they give you. 3 days to heal, to prepare, to forget the name on the parchment. You try. You soak your leg in water that smells like old pennies. You chew dry herbs to keep the fever away. You don't train, not officially, but you stretch in the mornings. Test the weight of your sword in the quiet hours before sunrise. You watch the other men, their rhythms, their habits, but mostly you watch the boy. His name is Linus. You know this now. One of the older fighters told you, half smiling, half pitying. They like that name. Clean, noble. Makes the crowd feel better when he dies. He doesn't speak much, just stares a lot. Watches the fights like he's studying for an exam no one plans to pass. He eats his porridge slowly, like he's unsure it's real. At night, he curls into himself like a question mark. You want to hate him. You want to blame him for the match, but you can't. He's not your enemy. He's your mirror. You see yourself in him for 2 long limbs, the quiet desperation, the barely contained panic. You remember your first time in the sand, the way your knees shook, the way you almost cried, the way someone else spared you, or didn't. You can't quite remember anymore. You don't talk to him, not really. Just nod, occasionally. Share a piece of bread. Help him with his bracer when it slips. Nothing more. But one night, after the others are asleep, he speaks softly, like he's afraid of waking the gods. Do you think they'll cheer if I die quickly? You turn to him. In the half-light, he looks like a shadow of a boy, a story unfinished. I don't know, you say. He nods. Doesn't push, just lies back down. You stare at the ceiling for a long time after that. The next day, you speak to the lanista. You ask quietly, calmly, if the match can be changed. He laughs, not cruelly, just surprised, feeling sentimental. You say nothing. He sighs. He's small, but not weak. The crowd will like it. You leave without replying, because you know the truth. This isn't about fairness. It's about timing, and the timing, apparently, is now. That night, you light a small oil lamp and set it near the old shrine. You don't pray, you don't ask for victory or peace. You just sit and listen to the flame flicker. Because in 3 days, you will face the boy in the sand, and whatever happens, you will not become the thing they want you to be. The day comes, not with fanfare, not with drums or declarations, just a pale morning sky and the smell of ash in the air. You wake before the bell. You don't need it anymore. Your body knows what day it is, what hour. It's learned the rhythms of the arena the way others learn prayers. You rise slowly, your leg throbs, but the fever's gone. That's something. You chew a leaf to dull the ache and spit the bitterness into the straw. The others don't speak to you, not because they hate you, because they know what it means to fight someone you recognize, someone whose breath you've heard in the dark. It's easier to die when the opponent is a stranger. You oil your arms in silence. You tie your belt. You fasten the straps of your greaves with practiced fingers. It's almost meditative, the preparation. Each piece of armor a step toward forgetting who you were. Linus stands nearby, doing the same. He doesn't look at you, not really, but you feel him thinking. This is not his first time now. He fought a match last week. A show fight, staged, blunted weapons. No kill, but this is different. Today, the blades are sharp. The gate opens. You walk together, not touching, not speaking, just breathing the same stale air. The light hits you both at once. The roar is immediate. They've been waiting for this. The veteran and the youth. the teacher and the student. The crowd loves a narrative. They see tension where there is only resignation. The editor stands, signaling. Today, there is no preamble, no showmanship. The signal is brief. Begin. You circle each other. You keep your blade low. Defensive. Linus hesitates. His grip is too tight, his shield too high. You can see every thought flicker across his face like lightning across water. He lunges. You dodge. Not because he's dangerous, because you need to give them time. The crowd, the editor, the gods, they want performance. You give them one, a clash of blades, a near miss, a spin that kicks up sand. You grunt, you fall back. You let him strike your shield, hard enough to echo. The crowd responds, cheering, pointing, hungry. You block, you duck. You whisper under your breath. Breathe. He hears you. For a moment, he stops. Just a second, confused. Then he strikes again, not wildly. Better this time, you nod, unseen. The fight continues. It is not war. It is a lesson. For them, for him, for you. And when the moment comes when he slips, when you could strike, when the crowd leans forward, sensing the kill, you don't. You drop your sword. The silence is immediate. Even the wind holds its breath. Linus stares, panting. Then he drops his, too. And the two of you stand there, in the sand, under the gaze of Rome, not fighting, not performing, just breathing. The editor stands. The crowd begins to murmur. Someone shouts. The guards tense. You close your eyes and wait for the hand, for the verdict, for whatever comes next. The arena is not built for silence. Its stones crave noise. They echo best with screams and cheering, with laughter and the low, rhythmic chant of the crowd demanding death. But now nothing, just the rustle of wind over the topmost rows, the soft crunch of sand under your feet, and the distant clink of someone dropping a goblet in confusion. You and Linus stand motionless. Your swords lie between you like fallen birds, and high above, the editor waits. He doesn't rise yet. He doesn't gesture. He's watching, measuring, calculating the crowd, the risk, the narrative. This is not the story they expected. This isn't triumph or mercy. It's hesitation, and that, to the Roman mind, is dangerous. The crowd begins to stir. Some shout in anger, sharp barking. Others laugh nervously. A few even clap, slowly, unsure if this is part of the act. One woman near the front tosses a bit of bread into the ring. It lands near your feet. You don't move. You don't dare. Linus glances at you. His lips part, but no words come. He's trembling, but not from fear, from confusion. You feel it too. What happens now? The editor speaks to someone beside him. A scribe, a guard, a senator, maybe. His hands move. Not the signal, just discussion. Whispered decision-making that will shape the rest of your life, or end it. Then he stands. All eyes turn to him. He raises his arm, thumb flat, sideways. It doesn't mean death or life. It means uncertainty. Deferral. Let them fight another day. You exhale. Linus sags visibly, knees nearly buckling. You reach to steady him, then think better of it. No contact, no weakness. The crowd is still watching. The gate opens behind you, a signal. Exit. You walk slowly, deliberately. You pick up your sword, not in triumph, just necessity. Linus follows. The noise resumes as you pass through the gate. Not cheering, not booing, just noise. Confused, conflicted, unfinished. The sand closes behind you like a mouth that wasn't fed. Back in the corridor, the silence is different. Linus drops to the ground, breathing hard, not crying, not yet, just absorbing. You sit beside him, still no words. There's nothing to say. Because today, you didn't win, you didn't lose. You just stopped pretending. And somehow, that feels like the bravest thing you've ever done. They don't punish you, not officially. No lashings, no solitary confinement, no speeches. But you feel it. The shift, the way the guards look at you, now longer, slower, as if waiting for another act of rebellion. The way the medicus touches your bandages without meeting your eyes. The way the bread at breakfast arrives colder, harder. They won't make you bleed, not yet, but they will make you small. That's how Rome works, not through fire, through erosion. The quiet grinding down of those who dare to feel too much. Linus is quiet too, but different now. He walks straighter, eats more, sleeps better. You see it in his posture, the way he nods to the others, the way he sharpens his blade without trembling. He's still afraid, but now he's also awake. The other fighters treat you both with something close to respect, or maybe caution. They don't mention the match. They don't need to. It lingers in the air like a phantom, like the smell of smoke after a fire. Varro breaks the silence, days later. He's watching you from the shade, polishing a helmet that's too dented to save. You should have killed him, he says. You shrug. I've killed before. He nods slowly. But that wasn't mercy. That was theater. You glance at him, and he squints into the sun. They'll either make you a hero now, he mutters, or they'll break you. You don't respond, because you already know. This place doesn't tolerate unpredictability. It can forgive weakness, even failure, but not uncertainty. You ruined their narrative. You made the audience feel something they didn't plan to feel. And that is dangerous. That night, you dream you're back in the arena. But it's empty. Just you and Linus and a circle of sand. No crowd, no editor, no gods. You look at each other. You drop your swords. And the world begins to fall apart. Not in horror, in relief. As if the very stones of Rome were waiting for someone to say, "This isn't working." You wake before the ending. You always do. The next morning, the guards call your name. You're not scheduled to fight, but you follow them anyway. Because in this place, schedules mean nothing. Only stories do. And yours has taken a turn they don't like. They take you to the upper cells. Not punishment cells, not quite, but farther from the courtyard, farther from the sun. A narrow room with a stone bench, a barred window too high to reach, and a door that clicks softly when it locks, like it's apologizing. No explanation, no threats, just quiet relocation. Isolation dressed as promotion. You're told it's for rest, but you know they're watching, seeing what you'll do when no one is looking, when the crowd isn't cheering, when there's no boy beside you to spare, just your thoughts, and a silence that feels like a mouth waiting. They bring your meals, lukewarm, always the same. Barley, water, an olive or two. Nothing poisoned, just bland enough to remind you who controls the flavor of your life. Once, a note comes with the bread, folded into the crust. 2 words, thank you. No name, but you know who. It stays in your pocket until the ink smears. You spend the days tracing your scars, counting the fights you remember, naming them, not the opponents, the wounds. This one, from the goal with the hawk tattoo. This one, the spear tip that glanced off your collarbone. This one, self-inflicted, when you fell on your own sword to avoid worse. Each mark is a chapter, and you realize, for the first time, that your body remembers better than you do. You don't speak for days. There's no one to speak to. You begin to hum, softly, just to hear a voice, even if it's your own. Sometimes, in the quiet, you hear footsteps outside. Once, laughter, twice, crying, always followed by the sound of the door locking again. You wonder if they've forgotten you, or if forgetting you is the point. Rome doesn't destroy you with violence. It erases you, piece by piece, until you're not a man anymore, but a story, a myth. Taurus, the gladiator who spared a boy. Taurus, who walked away from a victory. Taurus, who stood still in a place built for movement. You wonder how long it will take for the real you, the scared, hungry, tired, you to vanish completely. You wonder if he's already gone. Then one morning, without ceremony, the door opens. A guard nods. You rise, your legs are stiff, your back aches, but you follow, out of the cell, into the corridor, back toward the light. The Lannister meets you by the gate. He looks at you, not angrily, not kindly, just long enough to make sure you're still there. Then he speaks. You're fighting tomorrow. You nod, and he adds, you've been noticed. That could mean anything, but in Rome, it rarely means anything good. You don't sleep the night before. The cell is different, now emptier somehow, the stone colder. Even the air tastes stale, like someone exhaled centuries ago and it never left. You lie awake, watching the ceiling, tracing the cracks like constellations. You think about the note. You think about Linus. You think about what the Lannister said. You've been noticed. That word noticed sticks in your ribs like a splinter. Not praised, not rewarded, not spared, just noticed. As if you were a flicker of movement in the corner of someone's eye. A ripple in a glass of wine. That's the danger, isn't it? Being real. They liked you better as a shadow. You're told nothing about the fight. No name, no type, just the time. Third match, midday peak heat, peak crowd. You don't ask questions. That morning, they dress you in your best armor. Not new, nothing here is truly new but polished, gleaming. Even your helmet has been buffed until it reflects your own warped face back at you. You are to be a spectacle today, and you know what that means. They don't feed you much. A mouthful of porridge, a sip of wine, enough to keep you moving, not enough to dull the edges. Your body is tired, but your hands are steady. You think, maybe this is the end, and somehow that thought is almost peaceful. The gate rises slowly. The light hits harder than usual. The noise is immediate, deafening. Not just sound, but sensation. You feel it in your sternum, in your teeth. A living thing. A storm of need and hunger and celebration, all painted in dust and sweat. You step into it. You do not flinch. Across the arena stands your opponent. You do not recognize him. He is tall, masked, heavy armor, 2 swords, Dimachus. Unusual, dangerous, a stranger. But that's not the part that chills you. It's the silence around him. The crowd hushes slightly as he enters. A ripple of expectation. A reverence you've never felt before. Who is he? You don't know. And it doesn't matter. The editor rises. He does not speak. He does not need to. A simple motion. The horn sounds. Begin. You raise your shield. And then the stranger moves. Fast. Faster than anyone you've ever faced. Your shield takes the first blow, but barely. The force drives you back. You stagger. Correct. Swing. He's already gone. The second blow lands on your shoulder. Sharp, not deep, but deliberate. A taste. The crowd roars. Not for you, not today. You understand now. You were not brought here to win. You were brought here to lose. Beautifully. It happens gradually. The match is not a slaughter knot at first. That would disappoint them. Rome is not a city of simple brutality. It's a connoisseur of pain. It wants its defeats seasoned. So your opponent pulls his strikes, just enough to keep you dancing. You dodge, parry, stagger. He cuts your arm lightly. Then your thigh, reopening the wound from before. Then your ribs, shallow, deliberate, precise. The blood runs in polite streams. The sand drinks greedily. You fight back. Not because you believe you can win, because that's part of it, the struggle, the illusion of choice. And for a few seconds, you even land a hit. Your blade catches his side. Armor deflects it, but the sound, the clean ring of steel on steel, makes the crowd lean in. They think you might survive. That's when he stops pretending. He moves like a storm. Two blades, turning in tandem, almost fluid. Your shield is knocked from your hand. Your breath chokes in your throat. You see the next blow coming, and still, you take it. Right shoulder, a crack, not a cut. Bone, you spin, fall, knees in the sand. The crowd surges, not because they want it to end, because they don't. He circles you now. You kneel, unarmed. You are the painting they paid to see, the man who stood against the tide, the man who was about to die, and then a sound, small, soft, your name, Taurus. You lift your head, Linus. He's in the front row, somehow, alone, standing. No one else seems to notice him, but you do. His eyes are steady, not afraid, not pleading, just watching. You remember that note. Thank you. And something inside you, something small and stubborn, begins to burn. You reach for your sword. It's not far, half buried in the sand. You hear the crowd gasp, murmurs. Your opponent steps back, almost amused. You rise slowly, not triumphant, not desperate, just human. You pick up the blade. The metal is slick with your own blood. You grip it anyway. Because if this is the end, you will not give them a perfect death. You will give them truth. You don't charge. There's no glory in that. Just another body collapsing too fast. Instead, you pace. One slow step at a time, sword in your right hand, left arm hanging limp, shoulders screaming with every breath. The stranger watches. He's not mocking, not cruel, just patient, practiced. You wonder how many times he's done this, how many bodies he's walked away from, how many names he's forgotten. Maybe he started like you, maybe not. Maybe he never had a name to begin with. Your feet dragged through the sand. You feel the grains catching in your cuts, clinging to your skin like memory. Each step feels heavier than the last. Not from blood loss, but from something else. Wait, history. This sand has seen too much. It remembers everything. And right now, it remembers you. You strike, not fast, not clean, but it connects. Your sword carves across his thigh just enough to stagger him. The crowd gasps. He reacts quickly, slamming your chest with the hilt of one blade. You fall again, flat, air gone. But you smile, because you made him bleed. Even if only for a moment. He stands over you. And now, it's time. Not for the kill, for the choice. He looks to the editor. The editor, in turn, looks to the crowd. The crowd is confused. They expected triumph. Not this. Not a man who rises, falls, rises again, and still does not beg. You see it in their faces, the doubt, the discomfort. You've ruined their appetite. The editor hesitates, and that's when you do the only thing left. You drop your sword again, not because you surrender, but because you refuse to perform. And slowly, with aching limbs, you rise, unarmed, standing in the middle of the arena, arms down, eyes clear. A man, not a myth, not a symbol, just flesh and bone, breathing. The crowd doesn't cheer, they whisper, because something has changed. They've seen thousands die, but now they're seeing someone live, even if just for one breath longer than expected. He hesitates. The editor, up in his marbled perch, fingers steepled, eyes narrowed. He's older than you expected, grey at the temples, lean, elegant, his tunic crisp, sandals spotless. You can tell he wasn't born into this job. He wears it like a second skin, comfortably, but not naturally. He doesn't speak, but his silence speaks volumes. This is a problem. You are a problem. This was supposed to be a pageant, a poetic defeat, a renewal of Roman dominance in the shape of clean victory. But instead, you're still standing, bleeding, bruised, breathing and, worst of all, unbroken. You've changed the story, and Rome does not like improvised endings. The crowd too has shifted. They don't cheer anymore. They watch, tens of thousands of eyes squinting into the sunlight, trying to make sense of what they see. A man refusing to kneel, a man who will not kill and will not die. You've turned the spectacle into a sermon, and that is dangerous. The editor raises his hand, not high, not quickly, just enough to draw the gaze of the arena. You brace, you've made your peace. If this is the end, it will not be clean. And then the thumb, not down, not up, sideways. Again deferred, survival, not a gift, not a triumph, a pause. The crowd erupts not in cheers, but in debate, shouting, confusion. Half of them think you should have died. The other half aren't sure what they think. You've split them. That's something. Your opponent steps back, nods once. A gesture not of respect, but of recognition. Then he turns and walks toward the gate, vanishing into the shadowed tunnel. You remain a little longer, face toward the crowd, blood drying on your chest. You meet their eyes, one by one, as if daring them to forget you. And then you turn and walk away too, back into the dark, back into the silence that always follows when a man refuses to play his part. It's always quiet after, not immediately. Not while the gates are still open, not while the sand is still settling, but afterward when the armor comes off, when the blood clots, when the crowd has gone home to dinner and gossip, it gets quiet. That heavy kind of quiet, like a room remembering music. You're back in the corridor, your shoulder is wrapped in cloth, your leg is stiff, your ribs feel cracked, but none of it is new. What's new is the way they look at you, not the guards, the fighters. Linus is waiting when you return. He doesn't smile, he doesn't speak, he just nods once, and that's enough. The Lannister doesn't say anything either, just watches you, as if waiting to see if you'll shatter or soften. You do neither. Later, as night falls, you sit by the window again. The straw mat digs into your back. The air is still. No torches tonight, just moonlight and memory. You hear whispers, not cruel, not curious, reverent. Taurus, someone says. And then, softer, he stood up. You think of all the things you've stood through. The first branding, the first fight, the first death you caused, the long silences, the stench of blood, the sound of your own heartbeat, loudest when you were alone. Standing is not always an act of rebellion. Sometimes it's just the only thing left. But now it means something more. You weren't supposed to make it through that match. You were supposed to die memorably. Instead, you lived inconveniently. And in Rome, that might be worse. Tomorrow, they'll decide what to do with you. Maybe exile. Maybe a different kind of match. Maybe nothing. You lie back. You listen to the breaths of the others. You let yourself imagine not escape, not glory, but peace, a field, a stream, the sound of birds you haven't heard in years, and a name, your name spoken softly by someone who loves you, not Taurus, the other one, the forgotten one. You close your eyes, and for the first time in a long time, you sleep. He appears the next morning, dressed finely for this place. You're summoned to the main yard. No armor, just your tunic, still stained from the last fight. Your steps are slow. Not from pain though, the pain is always there, but from a strange stillness in your chest. A waiting. He's waiting too. Leaning against a column like someone visiting a vineyard, not a prison. Robes of soft blue, trimmed in gold. Clean-shaven, gold ring on one hand. A small fruit in the other, an apple or a pear. He bites into it gently, like the world was made for his teeth. You're shorter than I expected, he says without looking up. You say nothing. He finally glances at you. His eyes are light, empty, like polished glass. I watched your last match, he says. Very moving, very inconvenient. You remain still. He nods slightly, chewing. They're talking about you, you know. Senators, scholars, even the scribblers in the forums. Taurus, the defiant, the man who wouldn't kneel. He chuckles. You've become a metaphor. Congratulations. Still, you don't respond. Because this man, whoever he is, does not want conversation. He wants confirmation that you are the thing they say you are, that the myth matches the man. He walks toward you slowly, circles once, like he's inspecting a statue. You stood, he says. You bled. You lived. And worst of all, you made them feel. He stops in front of you. Rome can handle blood, but Rome cannot handle doubt. Another bite, he chews thoughtfully. There are people who want you silenced, others who want you celebrated, and still others who want to put you on a boat and send you somewhere so distant your story turns to fog. He smiles. I think I'd prefer the last. You meet his eyes now, and for the first time you speak. What do you want? He tilts his head like a bird, intrigued. I want Rome to stay asleep, he says, and you are an alarm. He tosses the fruit to the ground. It lands with a soft thud. Then he turns and walks away. No orders, no threats. Just the scent of power in his wake. You stand alone in the yard, staring at the bruised fruit. You don't know his name, but you know what he is. A reminder that survival was not the end of your story. It was the beginning of something else, and Rome is starting to notice. You stay in the Ludus, but something has shifted. The routines remain: the early morning drills, the gruel, the oiled armor, the half-silent sparring sessions, but your presence carries a new kind of gravity. Not admiration, not fear, symbolism. They look at you now the way people look at statues, for meaning, not understanding. Linus still trains, harder now, more precise. You see yourself in him, not the boy you were, but the man you became after the first real wound. He asks fewer questions, watches everything, listens even to the silence. One evening, he speaks. You weren't trying to win, were you? You pause, No. He nods, like that answers something deep inside him. You sit together, the way people do when they're too tired for anything else. Just two bodies, scarred and unsure. I dream about it, he says, quietly. The arena, the crowd, dying. So do I, you say. He glances at you. Even now, you almost laugh. Especially now. Because there's something worse than dying in the arena. Living afterward. Not because of pain, but because of the echo. They're painting you on walls now. Taverns, baths, a rough sketch scratched into the back of a coin stall. A figure with arms down, face raised, sword at his feet. Taurus non cessadet. Taurus did not fall. You didn't make that phrase. Someone else did. Rome is good at that. Turning blood into poetry. You're starting to feel like a ghost of your own story. And worse people are beginning to ask what it means. Not just in whispers. Publicly, a senator makes a speech, referencing the courage of those who suffer not for conquest, but for principle. A philosopher writes a scroll on the will that refuses performance. A young woman brings flowers to the arena gates. None of this was your plan. You didn't want a legacy. You just wanted one moment of truth. And now, they are building a monument with your silence. The Lannister calls you in. He looks tired. They want you in the arena again, he says. You wait. It won't be a match, he adds. Just an appearance, a salute. You nod. He watches you. You could say no. No. You say, I can't. And you're right. Because once Rome decides you are an idea, you can no longer be a person. You walk back to your cell. Linus meets you at the door. They're using you, he says. You nod. They always were. He asks, what happens if you stop letting them? You don't answer, because you've already started to wonder that yourself. You're not given armor, just a tunic, freshly laundered, plain white. Not the chalk white of a senator or a priest. The soft, honest white of linen that's been scrubbed too many times. It clings to you oddly. You feel unarmed, which of course is the point. This is not a fight. This is theater. The appearance is scheduled between two real matches. A break in the blood. A palate cleanser, they call it. Something to remind the audience they are, after all, civil. You are not allowed to speak. You are to walk the perimeter of the arena. Once, slowly, then bow to the editor's seat. A reminder of your survival, of your choice, of your usefulness. The gate opens. The sun is bright. The roar is strange. Not thunderous, not frenzied, confused, hesitant, as if they've come to see something they don't know how to react to. You step out, your footsteps stir the dust, but not the blood. For once, there is none. The sand is clean, or cleaner. You walk eyes forward, shoulders steady. No performance, just presence. You hear them saying your name, not in unison, but in waves. A ripple of breath. Taurus, Taurus, Taurus. It makes you want to laugh or cry. You do neither. You round the final corner. The editor is standing. So is the emperor. You didn't know he'd be here, but he is. Robed in purple. Gold leaves pressed into his brow. His face is unreadable. You stop. You bow. Not low, not high. Just enough. The crowd waits. He says nothing. The editor lifts a hand. Not a gesture of mercy. A command. You're dismissed. You turn. You begin walking back. But then something moves in the crowd. A voice. A question. Tell us, it says. A woman's voice. Strong, clear. Why didn't you kill him? you freeze. The guards tense, the crowd hushes. You turn your head slightly. You see her, not dressed finely, not close to the arena floor, but her voice carries. The emperor does not speak. The editor does not stop her. They want to hear what you'll do. You face the crowd again. You don't speak. You just raise your hand. Not in a fist, not in triumph, but in stillness. And the arena, the entire arena, goes silent. For one moment, one breath. Tens of thousands of people hold still. Because a man stood. Because a man refused. Because a man became something more than a name. And then you lower your hand and walk away. The crowd doesn't erupt. They don't need to. Because in that silence, you said everything. That night, something shifts. Not in the walls. Not in the routine. In the air. You feel it when you return to the ludus. The way the guards nod a little slower. The way the cook ladles your porridge with a little less disdain. The way the other fighters look at you not with awe, but with something heavier. Recognition. It isn't about survival anymore. It's about what you mean. And meaning, in Rome, is dangerous currency. You sit near the window again. The moon is low, the sky clouded. The stars don't visit often. Linus joins you without asking. He hands you a piece of bread, breaks his own in silence. After a while, he speaks. They've painted your face on the wall outside the butcher's stall, right above the sausages. You smile, not because it's funny, but because it's absurd. He continues. One of the new recruits says he wants to fight like you. You glance at him, tell him not to. I did, he says. I told him that if he wants to live, he should fight like someone else. You chew slowly, then ask, and what did he say? He said he doesn't care about living. You close your eyes, because you remember that feeling, not wanting to die. Just not being afraid if you do. Because it might mean something. Because it might echo. Because it might break something open that was never supposed to be touched. Linus leans back, arms crossed behind his head. They're going to make you a legend, he says. No, you murmur. They're going to make me a statue. Same thing, he says. And you know he's right. Statues don't bleed. They don't argue. They don't get a choice. They just stand, forever, repeating a message they never got to approve. You think about disappearing, about leaving Rome, about vanishing into the hills, changing your name, becoming a story no one can prove. But deep down, you know that's impossible. Because the moment you stood in the sand, refused to kneel, they stopped letting you be a man, and started turning you into something else. The arena has a memory, but it never remembers you exactly as you were, only as what it needed you to be. You hear your name in the streets now, not shouted, whispered in markets. In the dark corners where people trade more than goods wear, they trade questions. Taurus, the man who refused, the gladiator who stood. The name has grown legs. It walks without you. It drinks with strangers. It tucks itself into the mouths of poets and slips into the sermons of fringe philosophers. It arrives ahead of you like a herald, and what it says is not always true. Some say you refused to kill out of mercy. Others say it was revenge. Some believe you were part god, a son of Mars in disguise. Others believe you are cursed, a man who can't die until he sees Rome fall. You've become a canvas. They paint their hopes on you, their grief, their defiance, their despair. You overhear a baker telling a child that you once fought off 3 lions with a broken bone. You hear a soldier claim he watched you rise after being stabbed through the chest. You see a group of women light a small lamp beneath a drawing of you like an altar, like a prayer. You didn't ask for this, but it doesn't matter. Because Rome doesn't need you. It needs what you represent. They come to the ludus now. People who never cared about gladiators before. Not for training, not for blood. Just to see, just to point. That one, they say. That's him. Some offer gifts. Food, mostly. Fruit, bread, honey. You give it to the others. You're not hungry. Not for that kind of sweetness. The Lannister pulls you aside one evening. His face is unreadable. His voice is low. They want to set you free, he says. Officially, rudies and all. You stare at him, he shrugs. Doesn't mean you'd be safe, but you'd be symbolic. He doesn't need to finish the sentence. You'd be more valuable as a free man. More pure, more tragic, more Roman. You don't answer right away. Not because you're unsure, but because freedom after everything sounds like a strange kind of cage. He waits. Finally, you speak. What would I do? He sighs. Smile. Wave. Stay out of politics. Maybe give a speech. You shake your head and walk away. That night, Linus finds you near the shrine. He doesn't speak at first, just sits beside you. Finally, he says, "Are you going to take it?" "No." "Why?" You look up at the stars, so faint in the Roman sky. "Because I don't want to be free the way they want me to be." He doesn't ask what that means, because he already knows. It begins, as most things do in Rome, with a whisper. You hear it in the baths, two old men muttering near the steam vents, glancing around like the shadows are listening. You hear it again in the marketunda, the clink of amphorae and the call of a fig vendor. Someone mutters, "They're organizing." Organizing what? They don't say, but you can feel it. The ground shifting beneath the marble. The wind turning, slowly, against the stone. Rome is hungry, always, but now it's anxious too. Food prices rise, taxes deepen. The grain ships are late again. And still the games go on, because distraction is Rome's most sacred right. Bread and circuses. And lately, the bread's gone stale. That's where you come in. You who refused the story they wrote for you. You who bled without surrender. You who stood. You hear your name again this time, not in awe. In strategy, Taurus could speak for us. Taurus could unify them. If Taurus stood with us, they'd listen. And just like that, you go from symbol to threat. You try to avoid it. You stay in the ludus. You train quietly. You speak only when spoken to, but it doesn't matter. Your silence speaks louder than speeches now. Even the guards watch you differently. Not like property, like a question. The Lannister calls you in again. This time, he's not calm. They're asking questions I can't answer, he says. They want to know your loyalties, your politics, your plans. I don't have any, you say. He doesn't believe you. He sighs, rubs his temples. You have to be careful, he mutters. They'll make you their messiah. Or their warning, you say. He doesn't argue. Later, you sit by the old shrine. Someone's left fresh fruit there, and a note. Just a scrap of parchment, smudged with oil. It says, "Say the word." You crumple it, burn it in the lamp flame. But the smell lingers, and you realize you are no longer a man trying to survive. You are an idea, and ideas, in Rome, get crucified. You're summoned again. This time not to the yard, not to the training pit, but beyond the ludus walls, escorted by guards who do not meet your eyes. Their steps echo in tight alleys and marble halls, past mosaics of triumph and conquest, past the scent of laurel and burning resin. They walk like they are not bringing a man, but returning a rumor. You're brought to a villa, not imperial, but close. You can tell by the quiet, The kind of quiet that belongs only to the truly powerful, the ones who never need to shout. You're led through a corridor into a garden-walled, shaded lush. Water trickles from a carved fountain. Birds flit through lemon trees. You wonder if they're trapped here too. And there he is, the smiling man from before. Still polished, still calm, still eating fruit like the world exists for his tongue. He doesn't look up when you enter. Do you know what happens to symbols, Taurus? He says, slicing into a fig with a knife too delicate for killing. They fade, you say nothing. He continues. At first they are feared, then celebrated, then debated, and finally replaced. He finally looks at you. You are nearing stage 3. You meet his eyes. I'm not a symbol, you say. He smiles again. That's the most dangerous thing a symbol can say. He sets the fig aside. They want to use you, the people, the Senate, the zealots in the slums who think they can burn down Rome with enough slogans. They chant your name now. Isn't that sweet? You don't answer. He leans forward. Tell me, do you want power? No. Do you want freedom? Not the kind you're offering. He sighs, tiresome. He rises, walks slowly toward you. You do not flinch. He studies you like a priest studies entrails. I admire your consistency, he says. I really do, but there's something you should understand. He leans close, whispers it. Rome doesn't care if you kneel. It only cares if others follow. You feel the knife edge of it, the warning inside the compliment. He steps back. There will be a festival soon, he says. A great one, the kind they write about. You'll be invited, not to fight, to speak. You frown. I don't speak. He grins. You will. The guards return. You are led away, back into the noise. But his voice stays with you. Rome doesn't care if you kneel. It only cares if others follow. And you realize they don't want to kill you. Not yet. They want to own your silence. The days pass quietly, but it's not the calm of peace. It's the hush before a storm. In the ludus, everything continues as usual. The clatter of wooden swords, the hiss of oiled leather, the familiar ache of bruises, sharpened edges, and sweat. But underneath, there's something new, a tension, a held breath. The younger recruits speak less. The older fighters glance more often toward the gates. Linus sharpens his blade too carefully, as if every edge might be needed soon. They know, even if no one says it. The city is changing. You hear of riots in the outer districts. A baker's shop burned for feeding guards. A statue defaced not, an emperor's, but one of a god. The gods are losing their hold, and your name, it spreads like wildfire on wet wood. Slow, smoldering, impossible to stop. You do nothing. You give no speeches. You lead no marches. You make no threats. You train. You eat. You listen. But your silence has grown teeth. And the more you say nothing, the more they hear what they want. He's waiting, someone says. He's planning, says another. They'll follow when he rises. You sit in the courtyard, beneath the cracked statue of Mars, and watch the pigeons fight over crumbs. You don't feel powerful. You feel tired. But tiredness is not weakness. It's the cost of carrying something too long. That evening, a letter appears under your bowl, not wax-sealed, not elegant, just a scrap of parchment with a smear of oil. Festival in 4 days. You will be watched. No signature. You don't burn it this time. You fold it. You tuck it into the bandage on your wrist. And you feel, for the first time in weeks, the faint tremor of choice. Not survival, not obedience, not myth, but choice. What you do next, will echo, not through the crowd. Through history, it begins at dawn. The city is dressed in banners deep red, imperial gold, cloth dyed with saffron and crushed beetles and stories. Musicians tune their instruments in the forum. Bakers carry trays of honeyed pastries. Children weave laurels through their hair. A festival for the gods, they say, but really for Rome, to remind the people why it rules, to distract them from remembering how you are bathed early before the sun clears the rooftops. The medicus checks your wounds. No armor, just a white tunic again with a crimson stripe. The color of ceremony, the color of caution. You are not announced, you are expected. They walk you through the back streets, not the main roads, past alleys that reek of wine and sweat, past shuttered windows and silent prayers. People recognize you, but they don't shout. They bow their heads, like mourners at a funeral for something that hasn't happened yet. The forum is packed. Every step echoes against marble, every breath swallowed by the sea of faces. You are led to a platform, not the highest one, but high enough. The smiling man is there again, sitting beside a senator, nodding pleasantly. He does not look at you, but you feel him watching. A priest speaks first, something about Jupiter and grain and glory, then a general, then a poet. Each word falls like ash, then your name is spoken. You are expected to rise, to speak, to thank them, to give them a story they can believe in. You step forward, your mouth opens, and then you say nothing. The silence spreads, not like panic, like recognition. The priest frowns, the senator shifts, the poet blushes, but the crowd holds still. They are waiting, not for words, for truth. And what they see is a man refusing the stage. A man who will not become the headline they wrote. You turn, step down, walk away. No ceremony, no rebellion, just refusal. And in Rome, that is the loudest act of all. They do not arrest you. They do not strike you down in the forum. No swords drawn, no gavel dropped, no proclamation of disgrace. They let you walk, because that too is strategy. Let the lion roam, they think. The people will see he has no claws. Let the myth decay in motion. Let it lose shape in the light of ordinary things. But they've misunderstood, because your silence isn't absence. It's presence refined, concentrated, uncompromising. It becomes its own kind of roar. In the days after the festival, the city swells with whispers. They say you're plotting. They say you've vanished. They say you've died and been reborn. One senator proposes a statue. Another argues for exile. A third suggests a quiet disappearance for the good of the people. None of them can agree, because none of them understand what you are. Not anymore, back in the ludus. The routine continues, training, meals, dust. But it's different now. Fewer jokes, fewer complaints, more eyes watching the gates. As if waiting for something, Linus trains harder than ever. He's faster now, meaner, not cruel but purposeful. The other fighters look to him the way they once looked to you. One night, he comes to you. You could leave, he says. You nod. I know. So why don't you? You don't answer. Not at first. Then you say, because if I do, they win. He looks at you like he understands, because he does. Not the politics, not the myths, the choice, to stay, to stand, to become something unbreakable, not in blade but in resolve. The next morning, you rise early, you eat slowly, barefoot. The sand is cold. You kneel by the shrine, relight the lamp. You whisper not to the gods, to yourself a vow, not to fight, not to flee, but to remain a fixed point in a city that cannot stop spinning. And somewhere, deep in the marble of Rome, a crack begins to form, not loud, but certain. They never told you their names. The first men who stood here on this same sand, under this same sky, centuries before your feet touched it. Maybe their tongues shaped older dialects. Maybe they prayed to gods whose temples are now rubble. Maybe they bled where you now kneel, but they were here. And Rome does not remember them, not truly. Their bones are gone, crushed into dust and mixed with the sweat of generations. Their victories, their losses, their screams all folded into the fabric of the arena like pigment into paint. And yet, you feel them, not as ghosts, as weight, as questions. What were they promised? Freedom, gold, legacy. What did they lose? Family, names, faces. You sit in the sand one morning, long before the gates open, long before the sun warms the stone and you run your fingers through it. The grains stick to your skin like memories, tiny, sharp. You find a fragment of something, a tooth, no maybe, a coin, worn too smooth to be sure. You hold it anyway. You imagine the man who dropped it. You try to give him a name, not for history, for dignity. He didn't ask to be remembered, but you remember him anyway. The ludus is quieter these days. Fewer matches, more rumors, a kind of waiting you can't define, like a breath held too long. The city grows restless, too. There are murmurs of fire in the eastern district. A senator's villa, defaced. A public brawl between citizens and guards, followed by silence. The smiling man has not returned, but his presence lingers. Every time you enter the yard, you feel the gaze of power. Not warm, not cruel. Just watching. Linus has started writing, scratches words into the wall behind his cot. Phrases, quotes, questions. He doesn't explain them. You don't ask, because you know what it is to need a place for the thoughts that don't belong in the air. Some nights, he reads them aloud. I wonder if anyone will ever believe we lived. You don't respond, because belief isn't what keeps you alive. Memory is. And memory, in Rome, is a kind of resistance. The days stretch, not lazily, but taut like thread pulled too tight. Something's going to snap. You can feel it in the way people walk, how they glance over shoulders, how they touch things less, speak softer, sleep worse. The ludus remains untouched, technically, but outside, the city churns. A market burned last week. A child trampled in the crowd. A baker hung for sedition, though no one can say what he said. Only that he said it in the wrong place, to the wrong man. You've seen it before. The beginning of collapse isn't fire or blood. It's bureaucracy. More guards in the streets. More eyes in the shadows. More grain stockpiled behind closed gates, while the outer quarters starve. And yet, the games continue. They always do. Because nothing in Rome halts the performance. Not drought, not war, not hunger, not the end of meaning itself. You're not asked to fight. Not again, not yet. But you're asked to appear. Once a week now. To sit in the stands, in a roped-off section near the edge of shade. To be seen, to nod. To wear the white tunic, to lift a hand not high, just enough. You are no longer Taurus the gladiator. You are Taurus the reminder that the machine still runs, that blood becomes legend, that legends can be domesticated. And you do it, because refusal would mean exile, or execution, or WORSE replacement. They'll find another man, give him your name, Dress him in your wounds. Rewrite the story so cleanly that even you won't recognize it. You nod, you sit, you watch, and you think, this is how the empire lasts, not by strength, by script. Linus writes more. The wall behind his cot is nearly covered now, words crawling like vines. A forest of thought in a room meant for sleep. He's different these days, not colder, not harder, just older. Like his soul's moved farther away from safety. One night, he asks, do you think we'll be remembered? You look at him, and you say, not for long. He nods, like that's fair, like that's honest. And it is, because the sand forgets everything, eventually. But for now, for one more night, you are still here, and the Empire, for all its marble and myth, cannot make you kneel. They bring you a new tunic, finer this time, dyed deeper red, edged with gold thread. You don't ask why, but you know, something is coming. Not another fight, not yet, something else. A gesture, a message, a stage. The Lanista delivers it himself, folded carefully. He doesn't meet your eyes. That's how you know it's serious. Later, in the bathhouse, a young fighter asks if it's true. Are you meeting the Emperor? You don't answer, because yes, it's true, and no, it doesn't matter. The Emperor is not a man, not really. He's a mask worn by 1,000 decisions. He eats grapes and signs deaths and smiles for statues. But you'll meet him anyway. Not for honor, not for freedom, but because refusing now would only create more stories, more myths, more danger for the ones who still think truth can be held in silence. You prepare quietly. Linus helps you fasten the belt. He doesn't ask what you'll say, because he knows you probably won't speak. That's always been your greatest weapon, your absence of performance. He hands you something, a strip of cloth, old, faded. You recognize it, the one you used to tie your hand during the first match. It smells like dust and memory. You wrap it around your wrist again. The guards arrive, dressed too cleanly, polite, not friendly. You follow them through the back alleys of power, up through tiled courtyards and perfumed atriums, past mosaics of victories you never believed in. And then, there he is, the Emperor, alone but not unguarded, sitting beneath a painted canopy, a table of fruits beside him, a single scroll open on his knee. He looks at you, young, younger than you expected. Not cruel, not soft, just tired. He gestures to sit. You don't. He sighs. They tell me you are difficult. You say nothing. They tell me you refuse to be used. Still nothing. He sets the scroll aside. You've become a mirror, he says, and the people don't like what they see in it. A pause, neither do I. He stands, walks slowly to the edge of the platform, looks out over his city, the roofs, the columns, the chimneys, the hunger. You can help, he says, without turning. You can speak, settle the crowd, offer direction. You study his back, the curve of his spine, the weight of the crown. And you say, finally, I'm not a leader. He turns. You are now. You stay longer than expected. The conversation doesn't continue. It lingers. The Emperor returns to his seat. You remain standing. The silence between you is dense, full of things neither of you will say aloud. Not because you can't, but because you already understand them. He gestures to the seat again. This time, you sit. He pours wine, not as a gesture of kindness. As ritual, the cup is small, the wine dark. You take it, you drink. It tastes like earth and weight and centuries. I've read the scrolls, he says softly. the ones they're writing about you. You don't respond. He watches you over the rim of his cup. They say you stood for mercy, for truth, for justice. He sets the cup down. I don't think that's true. You nod, neither do you. He leans forward. So what did you stand for, you think? You let the moment stretch. Then you say, for the right not to perform. He chuckles, a dry, almost bitter sound. You realize that's impossible here. I know. He rubs his hands together, slowly, thoughtfully. Every man in this city is performing, he says. Even me, especially me. You look at him, he looks back. And in that brief glance, you see something. Not kinship, not pity, recognition. The look of a man trapped inside a role written long before he was born. He changes the subject. I won't kill you, he says. You nod. I won't free you either. Another nod. You understand why. Yes, he stands. You do, too. And he says, with surprising softness, you're not a hero, Taurus. No. You're a reminder. A pause. Then he adds, and reminders get buried. You don't flinch. You bow your head. Not in submission, in understanding. And when the guards return to escort you out, you go willingly, not because you're obedient, because you've seen the truth and you know now. This story was never about winning. The days after the emperor pass in a hush, not silence, a hush, the kind that follows truth. People stop asking questions about you. They start making decisions instead. A senator proposes a monument. A priest begins reciting your story alongside scripture. A coin is minted your face, half turned, the word Constantia etched beneath. You didn't ask for any of it. You didn't consent. But that's the thing about legends. They're not built by the living. They're built by those who need them. You spend more time in the yard now, not training, just being, letting the sun touch your face, letting the wind carry your name wherever it pleases. Linus doesn't speak much these days. He's watching, always watching. One morning, he places a bundle beside your cot. Bread, water, a worn map. He doesn't say the word, but you know what it means. Leave, disappear, start again. You sit with it for hours, weighing the choice, not with fear, with something deeper, grief, because leaving wouldn't just be an escape. It would be a surrender, not to the empire, to the myth, to the version of you that's already begun, replacing the truth. You burn the map, eat the bread, and stay. That night, a young recruit asks you, quietly, what would you do if you could do it all again? You don't answer at first. Then you say, I'd still stand. He frowns, but you're still here. You didn't change anything. You look at him, and you say, gently, not everything has to, because, sometimes, defiance isn't about changing the world. It's about proving it didn't change you. There is a story the children tell, long after the emperor dies. After the uprisings, after the blood dries on steps no one remembers building, after the gates rust, after the sand forgets how many feet have bled into it, there is a story of a man who would not kneel. They say he stood alone in the center of the Colosseum, sword dropped, hands open, refusing to kill and refusing to die. Some say he was a slave, others say a soldier, punished for treason. Others say he was never real at all, just a tale for the tired. But still, they whisper his name, Taurus. And in one version of the story, they say he's still alive, not as a man, not exactly as a mark, carved into stone on the underside of a bridge, scratched into the base of a wall near the old training yard. etched into the copper of a forgotten cup that somehow never tarnished. Not grand monuments, not statues, not scrolls in imperial archives. Smaller things, secret things. Things built to last only in corners, in shadows, in memory. Because even Rome, for all its power, all its wealth, all its marble and myth, could not erase a man who did not ask to be remembered, only to be real. The sand is different now, not in color, not in weight, in feeling. There's no crowd today, no games scheduled, no officials, just an empty arena soaking in the late light of afternoon, quiet enough to hear the wind move through the arches. You sit where you once bled, not because you're nostalgic, because you're still trying to understand it. How something so cruel can become something sacred. How a place built to consume men can leave behind something pure. You touch the sand again. It's warmer now, finer, less sharp. Or maybe you've just grown used to it. You close your eyes, you breathe, and you remember not the screams, not the blade, not the roar of the crowd, but the silence, the moment after you stood, the moment no one knew what to do, because you broke the pattern, because you refused the script, you changed nothing, and somehow everything. They still fight here, of course, even after you stopped. Even after the crowd started shifting its cheers into questions. But something lingers in the dust. An echo, not of a voice, of a gesture, a refusal. And sometimes, just sometimes, a new fighter will enter the arena, kneel in the center, and touch the sand before rising, not as a ritual, not as performance, as remembrance. They don't say your name. They don't need to. The echo is enough. And the empire, for all its laws, its gods, its marble temples, cannot silence a gesture that does not beg to be understood. Years pass, not quickly, not slowly, just steadily, like water carving stone. You are not young anymore. Your bones remind you each morning. Your shoulder, yes, that one clicks when it rains. The old scar on your thigh tightens with cold, but you still wake early. You still train, though slower. You still sit by the window. And some days, you still feel the eyes. Not many, not imperial, just curious. A young guard, a merchant's son, a stranger with a distant accent, who pauses too long near the Ludus gate. They look at you like a relic, like you should be dead, but relics don't speak, and you still refuse to. One day, Linus leaves, no warning, no note, just gone. His wall of words remains, scrawled quotes and questions and strange half-thoughts. You add nothing to it, because he would have hated that, but you read it every night. Especially the last one, scrawled larger than the rest. You are not here to be believed. You are here to be felt. You don't cry. You haven't in years. Not because you're strong, because you forgot how. The arena still stands. Smaller crowds now, different cheers. But sometimes, when the wind is just right, you swear you can hear the hush. That one hush. That moment when they all stopped breathing to watch you not move. You visit once a year, never on the anniversary of anything, just when it feels right. You walk the sand alone, and the dust seems to remember your feet. It settles around you differently, like it's welcoming an old rhythm. Not a hero, not a symbol, just a man who once said no, and made the whole world listen. You don't die in the arena. That would have been too poetic. You don't die in battle, or under a collapsing empire, or as a martyr on a public cross. You die somewhere small, a room behind the Ludus, once a storage closet, now yours. You go to sleep one night, and don't wake up. No crowds, no blood, no thunder, just breath that didn't come back. And in the morning, someone knocks, waits, knocks again, opens the door, finds you still, not cold yet, not peaceful either, just still. Linus is never found. The wall remains. The fighters gather, not to weep, to witness. They clean the room. They bury you nearby behind the yard, near the fig tree no one remembers planting. No stone, just a small wooden marker. Your name, or the one Rome gave you. Taurus. But someone no one knows, who scratches something else beneath it. In letters, small and crooked. He stood. It becomes a kind of prayer. Fighters pass by and touch the post. Some leave scraps of cloth, some leave nothing. One leaves a sword, not as offering, as memory. Years later, the ludus is torn down, the yard paved, the fig tree cut. But the ground beneath it still feels different, softer, heavier, like a place that remembers. There's a boy, centuries later. He finds the name carved into an old tablet in a ruin near what was once the edge of Rome. He doesn't know Latin, doesn't know the history, doesn't know you, but he runs his fingers over the letters. Taurus, he asks his mother what it means. She shrugs. Maybe it's a soldier, a god, a story she doesn't know. But that night, the boy dreams of sand and a man who does not kneel. And when he wakes, he remembers the feeling more than the image. That's how stories last. Not as facts, as impressions, as warmth, as weight. No one remembers your speeches because you gave none. No one remembers your victories because you sought none. No one remembers your face because it was never the point. But they remember something. The hush, the stillness, the refusal, and somewhere, somehow, in someone, a choice is made differently because of you. That's all a legacy ever is. A ripple in silence. And so you end, not with applause, not with tears, just with the slow breath of history exhaling your name, and the knowledge that sometimes the bravest thing a man can do is simply stand. And if you've made it this far, thank you, truly. Thank you for spending this quiet stretch of time with me. Whether you drifted off halfway through or listened all the way to the end, I'm grateful for your company. If you enjoyed this story, feel free to subscribe. No pressure only, if it brought you comfort, or curiosity, or something soft to carry into your night. And if you feel like it, leave a comment. Let me know where you're listening from, or just that you're still here. Wherever you are, and however you're feeling, I hope you sleep well tonight. You deserve rest. Good night.